And from the pages of my daily news analysis website, MikeHuckabee.com, comes a story of mystery, intrigue, and just plain stupidity. After the Democratic primary debate last week, columnist Ann Coulter made some important points that no one else seemed to hit, such as what happened to the Democrats at the polls after the first time they passed the assault weapons ban that they're talking about bringing back. But what particularly caught my attention was her response to Democrats saying how much Americans are suffering without health care, even after they passed Obamacare. Here's what Coulter said, and I quote, "Millions of us were thrown off our health insurance plans by Obamacare, and now I find out that it didn't even make things better for anyone else. The government intervenes, everything goes to heck. And then Democrats just cite all of the nonsense they created to demand another massive government intervention." Now, what Ann said got me thinking about how often Democrats' impassioned arguments are based on problems they created themselves. For instance, public schools are failing in Democrat-dominated districts, even though they spend more money per pupil than successful private schools in Republican districts. The left solution: give the same failed school administrators more money. Here's another one. Gun violence is rampant in Democratic-dominated cities who have the strictest gun control laws. What's their answer? We need more gun control laws. And then this one, conservative speakers on college campuses have to offer huge security deposits because of the dangers of violence that their free speech might incite. And who would be perpetuating that violence? The destructive leftist protesters. So here's an idea. If the leftists terrorize a campus event, arrest them and pay the cops salaries out of the massive fines that they should be assessed for trying to violently deprive others of their free speech rights. And here's another. We must end the separating of families and caging of children on the border. You've heard that. Well, those aren't cages, they're detention facilities that were actually built under President Obama. Now, we wouldn't be dealing with the problem of separating children if they're parents, if we didn't have Democrat-inspired policies that actually reward people who come here illegally with children. And by the way, some are actually exploiting children by using them to get into the U.S. And that's forced us to separate those children for their own safety, because sometimes they're here with people who aren't related to them. In fact, a DNA test found that that was about a third of the children weren't even related to the people who were claiming to be their parents. Now, we haven't even gotten to how President Trump has to lead while the left call for his impeachment from his first day in office, then slanders and assaults that his supporters, and then refuses to work on any legislation in Congress, all while the media provides 90% negative coverage of him. You know, when someone tells me you're doing it all wrong, I usually ask, do you know anything about the subject? And if the person doing all the criticizing is a complete incompetent who caused the problem in the first place, I got some advice for him. Shut up and get out of the way. Now, let's see what's on your mind, because we always invite you to send in your thoughts and questions. This is from Friend to Israel, and here's the question. Please help me understand the president's decision to pull out our troops from Syria. I think Senator Lindsey Graham hit it on the head when he said, we will not have allies in the future against radical Islam. ISIS will reemerge, and Iran's rise in Syria will become a nightmare for Israel. Now, the vice president, who was just here on our show last week, was sent to the Syrian border to meet with President Erdogan of Turkey. He and the Secretary of State, who was on the show a few weeks ago, came back with a deal of a ceasefire that we hope will hold. But it's a dicey situation. I will be the first to tell you that I have had some real anxiety about what might happen to the Christians and the Kurds. And I hope the ceasefire holds. I hope the president's decision to get all of our troops out of there turns out to be the right one. I honestly don't know if it will, but I do know this, that the reason he is doing it is because he wants Americans to be back in America. And he wants to make sure that we don't see an endless war that we never can win. And let's pray that this works. And all I can do is say, I hope it does. Now, this from David in Springfield, Missouri. He wants to know this. Why isn't James O'Keefe's Project Veritas and their undercover information on CNN causing journalists to do their own investigating of the CNN leader, Jeff Zucker? You got to be kidding. Do you really think the news media is going to somehow help expose what James O'Keefe and Veritas have exposed? And that is the extraordinary bias. And they did it with hidden cameras, so it's not something that somebody said, who said to someone, who said to someone, who said to someone. This isn't third hand. It's the actual people from CNN on tape. And if you haven't seen those videos from James O'Keefe's Project Veritas, take a look at them, and you'll never, ever again wonder if CNN is a credible news source. This comes from Jim of Ohio, and he asked this. Hey, how did you celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day? And did it include that troublemaking Italian navigator, Christopher Columbus? Well, I got to tell you something. In my house, it's still Columbus Day, and it always will be. I love American history, and I'm not ashamed of American history, and no real American should be. It ain't perfect, but it has helped create the greatest nation in the history of God's green earth, and I'm grateful every single day of my life to be American. Finally, Rob in Charlotte, North Carolina, thinking about the 2020 election, and he says, on Thursday, Ben Shapiro said the frontrunners for the Democratic presidential nomination aren't connecting with voters on their platform proposals. He actually thinks Hillary Clinton would easily gain the nomination if she jumped in now. He wants to know my thoughts. You really don't. But the answer is a simple no. By the way, we want to hear from you, so just send in your questions, your comments, or your critiques to my2cents@tbn.tv. That's the number 2 in my2cents.tbn.tv. That's what it is. It's on your screen. Finally, an issue in the news and a wonderful moment from my Twitter page that I hope you will follow at GovMikeHuckabee. The face of the NBA, LeBron James, has been careful not to upset the Chinese. And he's done that rather than support the desire for freedom among Hong Kong's protesters. Earlier this week, James said, we have to do freedom of speech, but there can be a lot of negative things that come with that too. Well, sorry, LeBron, I kind of like freedom of speech and free enterprise, neither of which the Chinese government seem to truly appreciate. I prefer the position that football great Herschel Walker shared on Twitter when he stated this: America is the greatest country in the world, free to speak and think for yourself. And now a question. During the Summer Olympics, will the NBA players play for the USA or for China? I guess only Adam Silver and the Players Union can answer that question. But a salute to Herschel Walker for addressing the elephant in the world of basketball. And in closing, I want to remind everyone that I really don't like political jokes. I've seen too many of them get elected. Until next time, these have been the facts of the matter. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.